Respect yourself. All right, family. Welcome to another episode of Black Power Radio. How's your week happening? This is your co host, Dr. K. Truth Bay. I'm the policy analyst and Minister of Justice for our people. And I'm here joining with my other co host, Queen General Janae, who just popped in and out. Salute.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. All power to the people.
Power to the people.
The
And we
people.
have our ambassador on the stage, Ambassador Sheikh Imam Akbar. Welcome.
Well,
Black
thank
Power,
you
sir.
all for a splendid presentation here tonight, a good connection for tonight and tomorrow. And we just want to welcome everyone to Black Power Radio. And of course, we have the TV news and just a basic strip, but it contains the most informative radio talk and TV talk news on the internet anywhere on 196,940,000 square miles. And we are just happy to be able to talk about the Black Panther movement and to talk about the good progress that has been made since the introduction of the Book of Khaled, which is the Black Power manual, guidebook, and the Bible for the revolutionaries in modern times. It's just like they're going after us when they talk museum, and they're going after us when they use the X and the fist. That's our intellectual property, and we are making no mistakes about it. We're going after our property, and by any means necessary to bring justice. As Truth Bay is what? The minister of justice, a international minister of justice, and a liaison for so many international moves at this hour. And we just say Black Power, the Queen and Zinga making international moves as well to Africa and the Sankofa and to the diaspora and throughout the Caribbean. They have tentacles there. We have established good, strong connections and representatives in Sierra Leone in the person of Chairman Alfred Cisse and good, strong brother Ahmed in Gambia and another Nuruddin brother coming out of Nigeria now with the new good news going black in with Chris Sankara black to Azania in so-called South Africa, and I call all of it Alkebu land. I call it all the seed of the Adapa. Also, we're getting excited here at Black Power Radio today. We have good news see, the stock is going fluctuating everywhere, almost damn near everywhere you go, everywhere you look. But I'm telling you straight up, the stock is up on the Black Panther stock, is off the chain. Now is the best time for an investment in yourself. There's no better utilization of your time and your money than to invest in the Black Panther and the Black Panther movement in yourself. People come from all over the world. Where did they open their market first? Right there in the little ghetto stores, right? And you think ain't nothing going on. But he pumping $1 million a year out of your community. Some making multi-millions, got 3 or 4 stores, convenience stores, gas stations opened up in the black community. We're gonna have to borrow from the community and reopen under new management. A lot of that needs to be opened under new management. We must reconsider who we're doing business with at the point of tariffs and the threat of tariffs, right? But there's no guarantee. They never said that the workmanship in the American product will go up. Just say we're just gonna do Americans, right? And the tariffs on a place like China, well, there's no Chinese automobiles, but they got Japanese, Asian, Koreans, got Kias, Hondas, and Hyundai. I'm rolling in a foreign job right here today myself. There's no encouragement. They have no metric engineering. They have no cab forward suspension in the car. The workmanship and the materials are just average materials. Will force you to go out to Spartanburg, South Carolina, is that right today? And buy you a BMW. She looking for a black man working, but they're making real BMWs right down the curve. Got the sheriff on steroids or paranoids or He checked himself into rehab. Oh my! He's doing dirty all the way around, killing black folks, choking us out, right? Slamming what, pimping the holes and slamming Cadillac doors. Old wooden tooth Chuck wrong, right? We're going after him to bring an end to that type of government and put the new face of government in Spartanburg, the state of South Carolina. Huh? 1,000 states ain't gonna be too many. One is not enough for sure, but 1,000 won't be too many. Oh, we got to get our own program, our own family value system, and we have love. So I'm gonna leave it with the host. I see big warriors in the house and many others, and hats off to Brother K. DeWalt doing a great job in North Carolina. Hats off again to Queen Nzinga doing a great job. Well, she's all over. I can't even get nowhere. I have to stand back and let her move on out. And Truth Bay doing a fantabulous job all over. They say, where you working at, Truth Bay? Oh, she works all over.
Where I'm at, I don't know.
She from all over.
I'm
They
coast
just
to
had to
coast.
spot her in L.A. one day. So I
Tea
know her
no
from up and
sleep
down San
over here.
Francisco,
That's right.
Sacramento,
No sleep.
and up and down Oakland, from Washington State all the way to San Diego in the Bay. She working the whole West Coast, Call her the El Presidente of the West Coast. My. We're gonna turn it back to the host, but there's so much good information. Keep up with the Black Panther movement. Join the Black Panther movement. It's the best thing you could do. We are now working to get a Black Panther in every household. So we got to make this move now and make your move count. And when we know that it's the right move at the right time and hit it, strike while the iron is hot, because the stock is up on the Panther today. Thank you so much. My. Assalamu alaikum and Black Power. Black Power and Black Power Radio. And Black Power Radio TV News. Look at them go. And they lighten it up with the brothers out of Crazy Horse. Put his name on the list. And all the rest of those great ones. Brother G, big G out of Philadelphia's on there. And Brother
Period.
Raheem's coming out of Norfolk. We're giving him a hook up a big play in Norfolk. So get ready in the end zone because we're coming through. Assalamu alaikum and Black Power. Black Power. At this hour, Black Power.
Black.
Oh, excuse me, I'm forgot. The Black Million Youth Rally and celebration of the 26th anniversary of the Million Youth March. Don't forget that in September on Labor Day. We're going to get it ready now. We're going to pump it up and come all the way. And we ain't going to be with OJ. We ain't riding with Tiger Woods. We ain't going to McArthur Ash tournaments this year. Oh, but we're going to do some revolution. Power to the people and Black Power.
Yes, Councilmember White,
Power.
Black power.
All right, family.
Yes.
Yes. So how you doing, New World? What is happening in your new world? While we're waiting for others to come,
I'm fantastic, y'all, because I'm
can you
talking to
hear us,
y'all.
sir?
That meeting Saturday
Yes.
was truly off the chain. Now I'm praying that we can duplicate, or should I say, clone all of these powerful soldiers that are on the air right now, because that's the rule, or should I say, that's the new project or objective to return to what the community used to be. And what I've advised is all of us remember how wonderful it was when the Panthers guarded the community. Well, some have died, some have been prisoned, some have gone through a multiple of other changes. But if you remember it, that means this is what you have to replace and take it up a notch, two, three, or four, because this is what we have to do. If we want a better world, we have to do the work. It's now our time. So as we recruit, bring folks in and let them know that when you come in here, you're not just a card carrying member, you are a working member. We ain't carrying cards and impressing folks. We doing real work. That's what this is about. We need everybody, all hands on deck. This is the all hands project. Our greatest power lies in our unity. Once we understand this, the world will change almost overnight. I had a great time up there from Thursday to Saturday with Brother Akbar. We did a lot of work on the um, Black Community Headquarters, or Black Community Resource Center, which is the headquarters. And we're getting things ready so we can do real work from now on. We can't go back to sleep no more. And when you bring in new recruits, make sure they understand you got to go to work. You cannot roll over past gas and go back to sleep. Never again. We've got work to do from now on. Right on. Black Power.
That's right. Black power to that. Our work has just begun,
Our work has
family.
just begun, family.
Got
Yesterday
that
was
right.
very
Yesterday was very
intense, but we have a lot of work to do. So I'm a little distraught, family. Just got some really messed up news. I found out that one of the original members of the hip hop fraternity, Villaboy Cash, also known as William Cottrell, has passed away 2 days ago. So, more information on that will be disclosed. And we want to give our condolences right here on Black Power Radio and the Black Power movement in general, to send our love to his family at this point in time. And we're going to contribute some of his videos. But for those who may not know this sweet soul, he has been one of, again, the original members of the hip hop fraternity. So as we take a quick musical break, we're going to pay some tribute to our lovely Villa Boy Cash. And Shaky Mom could probably share some stories on the events that we had with him. He was with us when Dr. Umar came to LA. Big, heavy supporter of Nipsey Hussle, so on and so forth. And there were some performances, I believe, at the recent Hip Hop Fraternity Awards that just happened last week that he performed. So again, this show will be dedicated to Villa Boy Cash. Going to try to see if we can get his photo posted up. And much love and respect. You must tell you, family, you got to tell your loved ones. Just tell your people, your neighbors, how much that they are appreciated, and tell them that you love them. I can't tell you how this season we lost so many unexpected people, so many deaths and leaders going to say. So again, reach out to your neighbor, give them a hug, and let them know that they're loved and appreciated. So our heart and soul goes to you, Villa Boy, and we want to say rest in power, King. Rest in power. Black power to you. Let's play this video, No Justice, No Peace, and
no
we return
justice, no
right back
peace, and we
to
return right back to
Condolences and black power to the brother.
Black Power.
Black Power. And with no Cash and I were very close, and we toured there in L.A. and toured in in Las Vegas and all over the West Coast and all down to Texas. And I mean, we rode together, you know, and spent so much time together, very close, brother. Cash. He said we built it. I mean, brick by brick, and he said we built this brick by brick, brick by brick. That was his big theme song was brick by brick, man, and that was my main man. I love him so much, and he's big in St. Louis, East St. Louis. On the I'm gonna just come up on the Illinois side, and Sister Lacey knows Brother Cash over there. Lacey is a Black Panther, and she's out of St. Louis, East St. Louis, where and our brother Kareem was from over that way, and we just love our brother Cash so much. Hip Hop Fraternity General, brother Ken Harvey, I call him Dr. Ken, Pimpin' Ken, knew him very well. Worked with him, with his career, got him off there in Atlanta, got him involved with the hip hop fraternity, and the list you could say and talk all night about Cash. All the rappers loved him. We walked the streets of Atlanta, and I got pictures and receipts to back up what I'm saying. And all the rappers just loved him so much, and there's so many of them, from Pastor Troy and all those great hip hop fraternity network brothers. Ice-T networks with them, all rappers crisscross with the hip hop fraternity. They have your own awards and advice of Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, and they took that advice and established their own awards, and they have a great award ceremony every year with Dr. Ken, and we send the love to Brother Cash and his family. At this hour, we're in bereavement, and the warmest and most heartfelt condolences to Brother Cash, and and he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. And we pray that Almighty Allah would receive him on the highest level of the heavens, of the El Jannah, and we hope that him and his family will have peace and blessings during this time of their hour of bereavement. Ameen.
I mean, we'll share the screen so that way we can see how it's lovely. Not this video yet. Share the screen. Yes, the screen. And then we're going to play what you were just watching is a recent song of his called Brick by Brick. We're going to play it in the outro. But for those who may not know, again, Villa Boy Cash was well loved and respected, one of the original members of the hip hop fraternity. So we're suffering a big loss, big loss. Very encouraging young man. And he was real about everything that he did, but he wanted to be a role model for the youth. And again, another one of our black men that you love do something different. And he's always pulling pranks. And I'm telling you, so many videos to look at. But we love him so very much. I met him on multiple occasions, never really had a chance to work with him yet. And that was one of our major go-to visions, is to have him work with us in LA, specifically for a tribute for Nipsey Hussle. And this was something planned in 2026, never knowing that we would bid our last goodbyes a couple months ago. All right, so we thank you for tuning in Black Power Radio. And again, this is our tribute to Villa Boy Cash. You're tuning in every Sunday and Monday. We are the most informative radio show on the planet. So if you're just tuning in, thank you. And we want to make sure that you walk away with some points of action, some information for the Black community. Later on today, we got a very special guest coming on that we're going to be interviewing, Alesia Greenidge, one of the greatest authors of the Life and Times of Amy Jakes Garvey. And so we look forward to hearing from her in the second hour. A very, very important figure, Amy Jakes Garvey. Miss Alesia decided to take on this role and really bring life to those who may not really know about either of the two Amy's. So this is going to be a delight for us tuning in Black Power Radio. All right, so we'll be right back. And this is Brick by Brick by Villa Boy Cash.
Came a long way from the project always. Posted at the store, trapping out every day. Ain't had no handouts, I made my own way. They love when I'm down, now I'm 4 pockets straight. My plug hit my line, it's a major play. I put on for my city in a strong way. Day one, serve my enemies when they rob me. Got the money back and got it back the next day. Stitch by stitch, I ripped it. Brick by brick, I built this. Lick by lick, I hit it. Hit by hit, that's my ticket. My people hurt my feelings in the worst way. Why they wanna kill me in my birthplace? I'm living every day like it's my last day. I came up out the mud out here having my way. Stitch by stitch, I ripped it. Brick by brick, I built this. Lick by lick, I hit it. Hit by hit, that's my ticket. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Situation really made me tighten up. Same time though, I done sold the block up. My haters can't watch me run the bag up. Get the second, watch me run it like Barry Sanders. I'm with the ice cream and they can't stand us. I got up out that wheelchair and ran my bands up. I'm a young black CEO, wanna come up. Stitch by stitch, I ripped it. Brick by brick, I built this. Lick by lick, I hit it. Hit by hit, that's my ticket. My people hurt my feelings in the worst way. Why they wanna kill me in my birthplace? I'm living every day like it's my last day. I came up out the mud out here having my way. Stitch by stitch, I ripped it. Brick by brick, I built this. Lick by lick, I hit it. Hit by hit, that's my ticket. My people hurt my feelings in the worst way. Why they wanna kill me in my birthplace? I'm living every day like it's my last day. I Came up out the mud, out here having my way. 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 Out here having my way.
All right. That was Brick by Brick, one of his last few videos that he created. All right. So welcome back to Black Power Radio, and where we are going to be discussing all things Garvey. Where are Garveyites out there? As we know, Marcus Garvey, yes, darling. I'm sorry, Marcus Garvey has been a prolific in the Black liberation movement. And he is a figure, again, that many of our young people may not be aware of. And so we're going to play a little side video of the history of Marcus Garvey, because we always like to keep you entertained in the most best way here. All right, so we live that up. So what we know about Marcus Garvey, sis? Who's on the stage with us before we get to our guests? Do we have any Garvey stories that we'd like to share of inspiration? Back to Africa was one of the best movements still needed for today. I know damn sure I like to go back to Africa.
Oh yeah, well I attended the Marcus Garvey parade in New York, and it was phenomenal. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. Thanks to Sister Yana Santaway. She's a Garveyite, and her husband was under Dr. Garvey. Yes, so it's a very important thing for us to learn about Marcus Garvey. So. Are we froze? I think you froze. Sis.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Oh Lord,
We
can you hear me?
You, but you froze. Yeah.
Yes. Black Power. We hear you.
All right.
The song cut out a little bit, so we've been sabotaging.
No worries. We got our friends from across the pond, so we're gonna make this happen.
That's right.
So I'm gonna refresh coming back in the studio. In the meantime, Ross Palos, Chairman Ross Palos of the 6th Region. Welcome to Black Power Radio. How are you this evening?
Grand Rising family, and in the presence of the Most High, the great heart of divinity, we bring peace and goodwill to all our people, particularly our Asian family, that we must now unite very, very quickly. Enough is enough, as it has been meted out against our Asian people. So we give thanks, family.
Give thanks. Thank you so much for joining us, Brother Ross Palos. Your presence is always welcome here at Black Power Radio. Do you have any updates you want to give us tonight while we wait on Dr. Truth Bay? Any new things going on with the 6th Region? She coming back. Okay, it's glitching going on. Yeah, something is happening.
Yes, the 6th Region is rising, family. As you all know, the 6th Region is responsible to define our sovereign, our territory, our citizenship that is now necessary to save our race and our future generation from being annihilated. So the 6th Region is coming together, and we must be specific of what the 6th Region is. We are north of the equator on the same tectonic plate of Mother Africa. We are the islands that define our boundary within the Atlantic Ocean, the international waters. So the 6th Region is a must to define our territory, our sovereign order, that is constitution of His Imperial Majesty, church and state family. So the sixth region is coming together quick because it's not an option, it's a must. We have already unilaterally declared that the CARICOM region and the African continent since the 7th of September last year, 2024, is now one in all trade, development, culture, everything. So it is now time to define the sixth region properly so that we know the extent and the boundary of our kingdom, our territory. So we give thanks. A lot is happening, family. The sixth region.
All right. Power to the people. And them dogs back there, they're getting excited too. Lord of mercy. Am I even on the stage? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. Black Power.
Black Power. Now I can see y'all, family. Hey, Empress. Empress Judah. Welcome, welcome. We are so grateful to have you here, my queen. We got so much to discuss. This weekend, as I said before, family, it's going to be all thing Marcus Garvey. We're going to have an in-depth discussion of one of the prolific authors of Amy Jakes Garvey right here with us and tell us a little bit about what's been going on. But before, family, for those who may not know the importance of who Marcus Garvey was, let's roll that beautiful bean footage and get a little bio of the great man of Jamaica. Yes.
Marcus Garvey wanted to return African Americans to Africa to create a vibrant Black nation, empowered through economic independence. Although some of his goals were controversial, his crusade would inspire leaders from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela.
Garvey was certainly a controversial figure, but the concepts that we now think of as Black nationalism and Black pride started with Garvey's pronouncements.
Marcus Mosiah Garvey was born in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica, on August 17, 1887. Beginning as a printer's apprentice at 14, Garvey became union and later worked various jobs across Central America.
Marcus Garvey found wherever he went, Black people of African heritage in particular were always on the lower stratification end of society. This had a profound impact on him. Particularly, his concern was for the uplift of African people globally.
In 1912, Garvey sailed to London, England, and took night courses at Birkbeck College. After working for a Pan-African newspaper, Garvey returned to Jamaica in 1914 and formed the United Negro Improvement Association, or UNIA.
The UNIA was about Black self-determination. It was about galvanizing the ideas of Black repatriation to the motherland, the continent of Africa. And it was extremely important in terms of getting Black people to understand self-pride, pride in one's race.
Inspired by Booker T. Washington to raise funds and start his own school, Garvey came to the United States in 1916 and in 1918 began publishing the Negro World newspaper.
Garvey was extremely outspoken. He was, some people would say, almost bombastic. He wanted to take over Africa and had elected himself as president of Africa without consulting the Africans, unfortunately.
Determined to achieve economic independence for African Americans, Garvey launched the Negroes Factories Association in 1919 and a shipping company called the Black Star Line, which he planned to use to transport passengers back to Africa.
Garvey was a great organizer, but unfortunately not a great businessman. During the time that Garvey and the UNIA were trying to launch the Black Star Line, they solicited funds from investors for stock options through the mail. And this resulted later on in allegations of mail fraud, and Garvey was convicted and sent to prison.
After serving 5 years in prison, Garvey was deported. He eventually moved to London, and in 1938, he supported the Greater Liberia Act, created by known white supremacist, Senator Theodore Bilbo from Mississippi.
Marcus Garvey's association with Senator Bilbo is related more on a practical level rather than an intellectual like for each other. Marcus Garvey's attempt to help Africans in America leave and go to Africa fell in line with some aspects of KKK philosophy.
Garvey died in London on June 10, 1940. He was reinterred in Jamaica in 1964 and is hailed as Jamaica's first national hero and the prophet of the Rastafarian religion.
Although Garvey was a flawed leader, he's someone who is really important to the history of the Black radical tradition. He was probably one of the strongest voices of Black nationalism in history.
All right. Right on. So with every great man, there is always a great woman behind him, in which we're going to highlight Amy Jakes Garvey. So today on Black Power Radio, we have a very special guest. We have Empress Judah, aka Alesia Greenidge, that wrote Amy Jakes Garvey, the inspirational Black queen. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry. I'm adjusting myself, family. So what we want to do today is to give you an in detailed look inside the life of the wife of Marcus Garvey, a great prolific man, a Jamaican politician, and as you see, that created the Universal Negro Improvement Association. But what was the power and the brains behind the work that he was doing? So welcome to the show, none other than our beloved Empress Judah, Alesia Greenidge. Welcome to Black Power Radio, my queen, my Empress. You have to unmute your mic.
Black Power Empress, welcome.
Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Yes, sis.
Okay. Greetings, Black Power Radio. Thank you so much for the invitation. And before I go into speaking about Amy Jakes Garvey, I just first of all want to give thanks to Marcus Messiah Garvey and the UNIA and African Communities League, the great ancestors that have inspired me and motivated me through their devotion to the cause. And I also, as a reparations activist, want to recall and give honor to the innocent Africans that perished during the European transatlantic slave trade. There's one other key figure that I must also mention before I go into elaborating about the book, and that is Professor Tony Martin. Professor Tony Martin, as many of the all of you, I should imagine, on the panel are aware, but certainly for the listeners, Professor Tony Martin wrote 9 books about Marcus Messiah Garvey and the UNIA and African Communities League. In fact, of the 9, the Philosophies and Opinions was Amy Jakes Garvey's work, though he reprinted that after it went out of print. So they're great names and they're great example of Black power, African liberation. I have to call on them before going into speaking about my book. So again, I want to say Santa Sana to the great African ancestors. So the title of the book, the complete title of the book is Amy Jakes Garvey, Inspirational Queen Mother of Black Liberation. And Trube sent me a series of questions. And I'm glad to have had the questions, because having read them, I can see that I've been able to get all of what the questions asked of me in the book. The book is 299 pages with over 45 black and white pictures, over 45 to 50 books in the bibliography, and I have a filmography of about 9 films, 6 of those being around the history and the experience to contemporary times of quote unquote Black Britons. So I thought it was important to include that, because the book is 8 chapters, and in the final chapter I also identify Garveyites here in Black Britain, otherwise those that are doing work in respect of our liberation that are admirers of Marcus Garvey and the work that he did.
Yes.
So, looking at the first question I was asked was around the issue of
well, let's start from
Amy
the beginning.
How?
Yes,
Sorry?
you elaborated a little bit on what inspired you, but give us a little more detail. What inspired you to even want to write a book about this important figure, woman figure in history?
Okay, well, I mean, I love Marcus Garvey, and I was blessed to be in the presence of Professor Tony Martin, who, as we all know, as well as being an academic, he was a Garveyite academic, and he generously shared that knowledge with our people. So he came to London on a number of occasions, and I made every effort to be at those ticketed events in order to learn from the master teacher, Professor Tony Martin. And so what inspired me ultimately was the realization that there wasn't enough information about Amy Jakes Garvey and the pivotal role that she has in ensuring that the work of Marcus Messiah Garvey was never forgotten. For example, I think there's not enough of us perhaps that realize that it was Amy Jakes Garvey that compiled the Philosophies and Opinions, Volume 1 and 2. The first volume was compiled whilst Marcus Garvey was going through the whole trials and tribulation, and Volume 2 was then completed once he'd been imprisoned. And so Amy Jakes Garvey, you know, as a young woman in her 20s, Marcus Garvey, if we remember, we're going to come to Marcus Garvey later, was a bit older, but both of them were young people. And I think it's important because whilst my focus is actually on adult learning, there's a whole generation of my generation that left the British so-called education system knowing nothing about Marcus Garvey. He was never part of the curriculum, and we still have an ongoing battle to get Black history within the British education system. And so both Amy Jakes Garvey and Marcus Garvey were young radicals. Amy Jakes Garvey, however, even with respect to Professor Tony Martin, is not written about to any extent. And I'm not quite, I kind of like think that in terms of, with respect to Professor Tony Martin, he wrote an incredibly important book about Amy Ashwood Garvey. And that certainly helped me a great deal when I was researching into that triangle, because between Amy Ashwood Garvey, Marcus Garvey, and then Amy Jakes Garvey. And a lot of people, they say, oh, Marcus Garvey had 2 wives. Yes, he did have 2 wives. However, the first marriage only lasted 3 months. And I go into the book as to why Marcus Garvey himself expressed that he couldn't continue with that marriage, and also why Professor Tony Martin, from his research, recognized that Marcus Garvey, having recognized his divine mission, needed to have a woman by his side that also recognized that work that was so important to him, which was all about the liberation of our people. And so, as I said, the inspiration ultimately to write the book about Amy Jakes Garvey was because there isn't enough books out there that give the Black nationalist politics of Amy Jakes Garvey. There's little bits of her mentioned here and there in various books. There's one book in particular that I did focus in on, but the emphasis in that is that Amy Jakes Garvey was a feminist, which isn't enough to describe Amy Jakes Garvey, the Black nationalist. So I hope that in some way gives you the answer to the question. The inspiration is that we need to know, it's critically important that people need to know the role, the part that Amy Jakes Garvey had within the organization, not just while she was prior to her marriage a member of the organization, but during her marriage, during his imprisonment, after his deportation, after his returning to the ancestral realm. Was it not for Amy Jakes Garvey doing what she did, being the historian, being the archivist, being the chief promoter of the work of Marcus Garvey after he passed on, we really wouldn't be able to speak about him to the extent that we are able to now.
Right. So can you tell us, how did Amy Jakes and Marcus meet? Was she in any relation to Amy Ashwood, or did they know each other? How did that marriage, I believe in 1922 was the second time they were married. So
Well,
how
I
did
mean,
this love affair started?
yeah, it's a again, it's an area, of course, of Amy Jakes Garvey's life that has to be discussed because she is the second wife. However, I refer to her as the permanent wife. Why do I do
Right.
that? I say that because 51 years of her life, she was involved in Marcus Garvey's life. They were married for nearly 20 years. And then Marcus Garvey, as we know, died a relatively young man when we consider that he was just over 50 years of age. And so for the next nearly 33 years of Amy Jakes Garvey's life as a widow, she continued to not only raise her two sons, but she also continued to ensure that Marcus Garvey's name was remembered and the work that he did was never forgotten. In terms of Amy Ashwood, it's a bit of a complicated situation in respect of before her marriage to Marcus Garvey, they had known each other for about 5 years. And they initially met in Jamaica when Marcus Garvey had decided that he wanted to found and did found the organization. There's an issue around whether or not she founded the organization with Marcus Garvey for some people. However, going by the master teacher and #1 researcher into Marcus Garvey's life and the organization, Professor Tony Martin has the view that Amy Ashwood would have been one of the first members, but she wasn't the founder. And I think that's an important difference to make. However, once she did become a member, she was very committed, and like Marcus Garvey, she in America was involved in ensuring that as many people as possible got to know about the work. I think the reason the marriage occurred when it did was because, again, for those of us that are Garveyites, I'm sure for everyone on the panel, they'll be aware that there was an assassination attempt on Marcus Garvey's life.
Correct,
And
yes.
the assassination attempt occurred at a time when Amy Ashwood was now settled in America, and I'm inclined to agree with Professor Tony Martin on this because, as I said, he's very thorough in what he does. But if you can imagine, they've known each other for 5 years. They initially met in Jamaica. He then went to America. She then followed soon after. They united again. She was very supportive of his work. And just as he's building up the organization to the point where people are giving him attention, taking him seriously, gravitating towards his message, of course, the American authorities become very concerned at this Negro leader who's able to, as the BOI, because it used to be, formerly it was the Bureau of BOI, Bureau of Investigation before the FBI. They then started monitoring Marcus Garvey, and round about the same time that they started monitoring him, there was this assassination attempt. And so after the assassination attempt, the proposal to Amy Ashwood, who was on the scene at the time, then occurred. then the marriage in December occurred, a huge marriage in Liberty Hall with international guests. However, and again, people would have to read the book, and they'd obviously have to read Professor Tony Martin's book, because I didn't want to put all of the controversial things that had been said about Amy Ashwood in the book, because I didn't want people to think that I was attacking her. However, I have said a number of things in order to highlight why Marcus Garvey felt that she could not continue to be a permanent fixture in his life, and why he divorced her. For example, the tipping point was when they were going through a customs, and because Marcus Garvey used to travel around the States to spread the message and so on and so forth. And there was a situation whereby a bottle of strong liquor was found in Ashwood's luggage. And there was also, she had been confronted, and this is in the book, by a member of staff in the office who became suspicious about her behavior. Marcus Garvey was away in another state on business, and Ashwood was effectively flirting with one man in particular. And she was confronted by the other office worker, who actually started eavesdropping because they became concerned because of her behavior and the regular phone calls that were occurring between her and this gentleman at the time. So all of this is going on after they're married, and within 3 months of the extravagant wedding, Marcus Garvey was separating from Ashwood, unfortunately, because, you know, and this is what I think is really interesting. If people look at how mature, emotionally mature Marcus Garvey was, if we can imagine, that must have been very difficult for him in terms of the embarrassment. In fact, at the time now, Amy Jakes is on the scene, as is Vinton Davis, and he'd moved out of Ashwood's home and he'd found another apartment, and it was a large apartment, so he had Vinton Davis and Amy Jakes live with him. That may seem bizarre, but they were his key confidants and administrators, and it was also safer for them to be in his abode at that time, so that they weren't late at night, after meetings, going home on their own, and so on and so forth. So in terms of the practicalities of it, it was a good working relationship. Obviously, in terms of Ashwood, she wasn't happy with the situation, but Marcus Garvey had decided, and this is what I wanted to say in terms of recognizing when relationships don't work, that sometimes it's best to separate. Unfortunately for Marcus Garvey and Amy Jakes Garvey, Amy Ashwood wouldn't accept that the marriage was over, and for a number of years, in fact, most of Amy Jakes' life, Amy Jakes Garvey's life, she was always kind of like in the shadow, and at key times she would suddenly emerge saying that she's the wife, and so on and so forth. So it was a tough time at the start of the marriage for Amy Jakes, which didn't occur immediately, but it would have been probably a year or so later, because Amy Jakes Garvey had arrived in America, and she had by then heard about Marcus Garvey. When she was in Jamaica, there's no record that they met, unlike Ashwood and Marcus Garvey. And I think that may well have to do with the fact that Amy Jakes Garvey was from a middle class background. She had a very good education, and after excelling in her education, she then went on to work in a law firm. So by the time she'd arrived in America, a young woman, wanting perhaps to see the wider world, she then, on arrival in America, Marcus Garvey is known then, his built up a large following, and she went to one of his meetings, and that's how they met at Liberty Hall. She heard him speak. She approached him after he'd left the rostrum, and he actually invited her, because she was asking a number of questions, to meet him at the office that they could discuss his ideology further. And it was at that meeting in the office, he then explained to her that he actually was finding it difficult to do the work because the staff were not as qualified as he had hoped. And of course, Amy Jakes gets offered to be the key administrator, and the rest, as they say, is history, because not only was she already qualified to do the work as an administrator, she was also beginning to, I think at that point, having seen what Marcus Garvey was about, her own politicalization then began at that moment, because there's no information, and she also in her own book, Garvey and Garveyism, doesn't give any information. There's nothing to show that prior to her joining the UNIA and ACL, that she was politically active. So Marcus Garvey not only impacted on her in an emotional sense, because obviously they were working together, she built up feelings for him, but he also helped her, as he did, you know, so many other people. He helped her develop her own political consciousness. Yeah.
Right.
So
that is something that, again, a lot of people may not be aware of how much of a prolific speaker Amy, or is it Euphemia Jakes Garvey? Did I
yeah,
say her name right?
she always went by the name. She signed herself AJG. Her full name, as you said, is Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey, but she didn't hold on to the Euphemia. She preferred to be referred to as Amy Jakes Garvey. And even in Garvey and Garveyism, in the opening page, she signs herself AJG. And I think that's important that she did that as well. And it's obvious, I think, because Amy Ashwood Garvey, as I said, was still going around even after the divorce, saying that she's the original Garvey, the original wife. So yeah, Amy Jakes Garvey emerges as the suitable wife in respect of she recognized the mission, and I think more so, interestingly enough, after he passed on, while she was a young woman, who then became the second wife, who then was by his side, constantly supporting him in the work that he did. I think it was only, as I said, when he eventually passed on, that she saw him in an even greater spiritual sense than perhaps she had previously. And I think that's probably because of, by then, obviously, he was a global phenomena, and the realization that Marcus Garvey, if we look at when he was born roughly 50 years after the end of the so-called enslavement of our people in the Caribbean, and knowing what the European transatlantic slave trade did to destroy so many Africans, they probably hadn't expected someone like Marcus Garvey to arrive at the time that he did. And I can really appreciate as well when I look at, for example, Race First, and what Professor Tony Martin revealed in that book. I can see why the Rastafari community see him in a divine sense, because he really is an extraordinary man, as is Amy Jakes Garvey. A really, I see her as well in a superwoman, because we talk about goddesses. I see Amy Jakes Garvey, when you look at what she did as a young woman, as a young wife, as a de facto leader, as someone that was by his side after his deportation, following him to Jamaica, and with him as well, if we remember, when he founded the first political party in Jamaica.
Yes.
The People's Political Party.
People's Political, yes. That's
and
right.
so it would have been Amy Jakes Garvey that would have had the home set up in such a way that allowed his ideas to flourish, allowed his ideas to run freely. And it would have been Amy Jakes Garvey. She herself says that, you know, for example, when they were working together in the office, he would have conversations with her about her thoughts on what it was he wanted to say, what would be her input, which again is very interesting because although we can't quantify it, it's evident then, and going by the fact of the work that she did when he passed on, that she clearly was part of, once she understood his mission, contributing to some of the ideas that he also was continuing to develop and to share with her. I mean, without a doubt, it's his vision initially from 1914, but as she becomes the member and then the wife, it's clear that they were two intellectual giants who had definitely seen eye to eye in their race first ideology.
Right on. And they were a perfect example of a real Black love on how, and I'm so glad you mentioned that Marcus Messiah Garvey asked her from time to time what her thoughts were on certain issues, and that shows a sign of respect, so much
exactly.
So that we rarely see nowadays. And so they lived actually a perfect example of what we want to see for our young Black girls and young Black boys to grow up and have a mutual respectful relationship such as that. And so with that business, you know, she has been a prolific speaker. We do have an example of her doing some of her speeches before her untimely death in 1973. So here is a clip of Amy Jakes Garvey in one of her speeches, important to UNIA.
That Jamaica, independent Jamaica, has a Black prime minister. You say, well, those people are in power. That's Black power. But that's baloney. That is hogwash. That's a damn lie.
But Jamaica wasn't ready to elect a Black leader.
When you hear that Jamaica, independent Jamaica, has a Black prime minister, you say, well, those people are in power. That's Black power. But that's baloney. That is hogwash. That's a damn lie.
But Jamaica wasn't ready to.
That's baloney. That is hogwash. That's a damn lie. That needs to be a T-shirt. So what was she expressing at that point in time in Jamaica? I'm sure the political climate was changing over hands. So tell us a little bit about what's going on here.
Well, I mean, I've seen this a few times, and I think the clip is it's a bit of I don't think it necessarily tells us anything exactly as to what she was referring to. So I should imagine, given the climate at the time, she was probably making criticism of the Jamaican government at that time, because as you know, Amy Jakes Garvey was a Black nationalist, and she therefore didn't see the political the policies of the Jamaican administration as being within the best interests of the majority of the Jamaican people. And that's why she also, when she was offered the widow's pension, she refused it. That's the only thing I don't understand about Amy Jakes Garvey in respect of why well, it's her principles, I guess. She was against the Jamaican government's treatment of the majority of the people. So even though she was offered a widow's pension, she declined it on the basis that she had been treated as an enemy, so to speak, a bit like Marcus Garvey had when he initially arrived in Jamaica in 1927 to a hero's welcome. but within 8 years, he decided to leave Jamaica. It was also decided within the UNIA as well that he would be better placed to be in London again, with the hope that they could revive the UNIA. But that clip there, which is, I think the totality of the film is like 15 minutes or something.
About 19 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I should imagine that she's having watched it, as I said, a couple of times some time ago, she's referring to the government of the day, because she was always at loggerheads with the Jamaican government because of the whole thing to do with the impoverishment. The majority of the Jamaican population, which is Black African heritage, 60% of the Jamaican population is living below an acceptable standard of living in terms of poor housing, lack of access to education, and so on, which is why Amy Jakes Garvey was in quite a unique position, because she came from a middle class background, and so she was able to have a very good education, unlike many of her contemporaries. But yeah, looking at that clip, it really doesn't tell you enough about Amy Jakes Garvey, because she was a prolific writer. And again, when you're talking about respect, and I'm glad you said that, Marcus Garvey invited Amy Jakes Garvey. And again, this shows you at that time when women were still, European women didn't even have the vote until 1928 or whenever it was. So at the time of the UNIA at its highest peak, Black women were being treated better than white women by their own white men. And it was Marcus Garvey who invited his wife then, Amy Jakes Garvey, to be the editor in the paper for the women's column. And that really, again, shows you the recognition of Marcus Garvey for women, Black women, and seeing the value of having Black women taking an active role within the liberation of our people at that time.
Yes. So you did mention, she was definitely, she has some notable writings of her own. In 1944, she wrote a memorandum correlative of Africa, West Indies, and Americas, which she actually used to convince the UN representatives to adopt the African Freedom Charter. And we'll go a little bit more into what was the African Freedom Charter and what significance it brought us today. And then later on in November 1963, as she visited Nwandi as Kwe. I know I'm butchering the name, but this was installed the Nigeria's first president, that she published her book Garvey and Garveyism in 1963, as well as a booklet Black Power in America, The Power of the Human Spirit in 1968. And then she also assisted John Henry Clark in editing DeMarcus Garvey and the Vision of Africa in 1974, which was a year after her death. Her final work was The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, Volume 3, written in conjunction with Yusleen Udom. So a lot of people may not know how great of a writer that she is, but with you and your book, Amy Jakes Garvey, the Queen Mother of Black Liberation. I hope I said that correct, because there's a
no. I'll say it again. It's that the title is Amy Jakes Garvey, Inspirational Queen Mother of Black Liberation.
Black Liberation. There you go. I need to be crucified for that one. Absolutely. And that was such a great book that you decided to write on the Life and Times. Now, for someone who wants to purchase the book or get the book or get more information on how to get the book, can you tell our listening audience what can they do to get this copy in their hands?
Okay, again, following in the spirit of Marcus Garvey and the African fundamentalism that Amy Jakes Garvey and all of the members were subscribed to, self-sufficiency and doing for self. And so I've thought about Amazon, and I've decided that that isn't the way to go. So currently I'm working behind the scenes to see about getting a Black distributor in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. That hasn't been secured yet. However, the book is available, of course, in Britain, because I had the launch during the Kwanzaa, and I had an event for International Women's Month. So hopefully within the next few weeks, once that's available, then of course I will let you know, Dr. Troubre, so that you can share that with the Black Power Radio listeners.
That's wonderful. We'll be waiting with bated breath, I tell you. Yes, much needed. And we thank you again. While we take musical break, there's actually a, I believe it was a memorial service in honor of Amy Jakes Garvey for the opening of the Marcus Garvey Center, Big Stone. So let's play that tape. It's a few minutes long, but we want to give in the spirit of how Amy Jakes Garvey did affect others as well.
A very pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are on Jake's Road. As you see, world-acclaimed artist Jimmy Stewart is putting the final touch on Amy Jakes Garvey. Today I'm honored because the maestro Jimmy Stewart is immortalizing the legend, Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. It is the brainchild of Frank Marshall, a 70-year-old man from the community who have always wanted to laud this great woman. She is our First Lady. And when we immortalize her, all the children of the community will be able to see her and recognize that this woman is our hero. Come the 31st of December, she would have been 127 years old. The very first time her birthday will be celebrated. And what a beautiful day it will be come that day. The morning of December 31st at 9 o'clock, we're going to be having a memorial service at the St. Andrew Parish Church, remembering this great woman, remembering this great lady for the work that she has done, not just for Jamaica, but for all of Africa, those at home and those abroad. I am honored to be able to meet the caretaker, Everton Douglas, one who believed in the upliftment, the integrity of his community center. What a timing it will be. 127 years old she would have been come December 31st. So we're asking every single member of the Jakes Road community to come out. We're asking every member of Jamaica if you can find the time to be at the St. Andrew Parish Church. Be there in your numbers and celebrate the life of a great, great, great woman. She is a woman responsible for compiling the philosophy and the opinion of Marcus Garvey. She is a woman responsible for writing the great book Garvey and Garveyism. She is responsible as a Pan-Africanist for helping Mr. Garvey in his troubled times. Even when he's in prison, she used to go and tour the United States of America, speaking on platforms all over, lauding Mr. Garvey and never taking away from the greatness of this man. It's all about. So today, I am honored to be a part of history. Let's come out and celebrate the life of Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. What a woman, what a man, what a history.
All right, so this was a number of years ago. Now there was a Marcus Garvey Center also where you actually held your book release or your book signing. There, I believe it was on the 29th.
Yeah, can I just say that's the center. I have visited the center, and I just have to big up President Majobi. She is the current president for the Amy Jakes Garvey Community Center there in Mountain View, Kingston, Jamaica. The gentleman in the film, as you said, is Big Stone. He was one of the early members of ensuring that the center was established, and it's a lovely space, and it's wonderful to be there. I mean, if ever any of the listeners get the opportunity to go to Kingston, Jamaica, then please make a point of going to the Amy Jakes Garvey Center.
Actually, we had Queen Mother Valerie Dixon on a couple of times, and she had mentioned that she did visit the Amy Jakes Garvey Center. She actually has a couple of stories on Amy Jakes Garvey, in which we were hope for her to join us next time on Black Power Radio. But nonetheless, this is such an important person. And again, I want to say thank you for taking the time in your spirit to highlight someone and another one of our unsung heroes. We have so many in history, and which is why it's important to have just Black people in general to keep preserving our history, our legacy, since they're not teaching this in school. They barely taught us Marcus Garvey, so let alone Amy Jakes. So it was such an important turn of event. Now, when you did the event...
Here in England, as I said at the start, we didn't get taught nothing. So there's a whole generation. All we got taught, and we're talking up to secondary education now, was that Black people were slaves. We didn't even get taught about Martin Luther King. So we sure as heck wasn't going to be taught about Marcus Garvey. That's all they taught us. So by the time I'd left their so-called education, I didn't even know about Malcolm X. I didn't know about Martin Luther King. I didn't know about Marcus Garvey. I didn't know nothing. Fortunately, because I had an interest in history and geography, I then I was around white lefties before I realized that wasn't the way to go. It has been an uphill struggle. And this is why I have the utmost respect for, as I said, the master teachers who they themselves went through white academia, came through all of that and still returned to us and delivered the volumes of masterly teachings, i.e. Professor Tony Martin being one of a number, because as we know, there's Dr. Francis Quest Welsing, there's Dr. Aisha Kamusa Barashango, we have the war correspondent, we have Ben Buchanan, we have the great Dr. Leonard Jeffries. I know he's still with us now. Dr. Francis Chris
Yes.
Wilson, I think I mentioned her already. There's so many of these. And the interesting thing, however, is these are great African American teachers. And so here in Britain, we don't have that many black nationalist or race first master teachers. And so I'm extremely grateful for the African American master teachers coming to Britain. A number of them that I mentioned are now in the ancestral realm. And so I'm truly grateful that they took the time that allowed me as a younger woman to go and listen to them and therefore now take the responsibility to share what I learned from them. And I mentioned a number of them in my first book because this is actually my second book. So yeah, it's an important responsibility that we have to, as you said, take on the recognizing that we have the responsibility to preserve our history, to pass it on to the younger generation, so they in turn have got a better idea of who they are and what they have to do to fulfill their time
Yes.
and
And
their
yes. So
responsibility.
what was your first book?
My first book is a mixed Jamaican in multicultural and racist Britain ? And the purpose of that was to ask whether Britain was post-racial,
Okay.
which
What a question right
yeah,
there.
I mean, everyone was like, a few people were saying, "Oh, why did you put question mark? You should have put quotation mark." And I'm like, well, I have to ask the question. I can't be saying it is. I have to share what I understand to be the experience of Black people here in Britain, and leave it for the reader to decide.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, I'll just say this about the first book. I did reference the Windrush generation, who are referred to as labeled the Windrush generation because they arrived in the ship, the Empire Windrush, and so it's kind of like a label that is stuck with them. However, I say that to say this: they being the first arrival of Caribbean migrants, and thereafter ourselves, my generation being the firstborn British blacks, quote unquote, they experienced horrific racism. And a few years ago, you then had what was referred to as the Windrush scandal, whereby they were basically trying to say that those elders that had arrived 50 years, 60 years ago were facing deportation because they hadn't processed their papers at the time to legitimize their stay. And so it was just another
Okay.
example of institutional racism,
And
which
we're going
for
to get
those of
into that
us,
actually. I'm grateful that
yeah,
you mentioned that because we're going to segue into your upbringing because your upbringing says a lot and what inspires you to this day. So I don't know if
well,
our ambassador is national.
before I go into, sorry to cut you, sis, but I didn't really want to focus on the first book, but I thought it was important to say that in the context of I hadn't just arrived at, albeit I think it's an important place to arrive at. Before writing the book about Amy Jakes Garvey, I felt it was important, having been invited to do so as well by a couple of important people. But again, there isn't anything that really tells a true picture of what it's been like for us being born in Britain. In other words, yes, there have been improvements since the 50s and the 60s, when the type of extreme racism, blatant racism that my parents' generation and the Windrush generation experienced. However, institutional racism was finally acknowledged after the murder of Stephen Lawrence. That probably would be a conversation for me to be on the radio at another time, because tonight we are talking about Amy Jakes Garvey. But I just thought I'd mention that because, interestingly enough, the Jamaicans that arrived in Britain saw Britain as the mother country, whereas the Garveyites from Jamaica saw Africa as the motherland. And I think, again, this is why Garveyism is still relevant in 2025, because over 100 years ago, Amy Jakes Garvey, as the wife of Marcus Garvey was in support of an ideology that was saying race first, charity begins at home, Black people must take responsibility for their own liberation, they must unite, and they must see Africa as their motherland, that they have a right to control and to safeguard. And now here we are in 2025, and that ideology is still as relevant as it was over 100 years ago. That's what I think is so important about Garveyism, and why Amy Jakes Garvey, when we recognize that as women, we must be empowered to know that the best place for us is with our men in the struggle for our liberation from racism, sexism,
I shade of that.
classism, the list goes on.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's what I say. We got to honor our Black men and honor our
And
Black
Black
women with all
power.
we got. Right on. So, do you want to chime in, Ambassador Sheikh Imam Akbar, on some Garvey expressions? Because I know the Black Power
Oh, my,
buff
oh,
you.
my, oh, my. We are certainly glad to have you with us this evening. Here to yet another episode of Black Power Radio TV News. And we reach out to all of those in the UK. And my good friend there, he has been doing so much to bridge the gap. And he's been run underground several times. And our great sister there, Miss Johnson, was shot in the face and over this liberation movement, over this Panther and this Black Revolution, etc. But nevertheless, I wanted to always ask the question that the one we call Malcolm X, he's known as El Haji Malik Shabazz, he's known as Omar Wali, the freedom fighter. El Haji Abdul Malik Shabazz and Malik Shabazz. But they say he is written in Oxford University as the #1 debater and #1 scholar. And we celebrated such Dr. Crooker Truth Bate and I celebrated in Los Angeles the born day of Dr. Malik Shabazz and Malcolm X. And since then, and give me your opinion on Elon Musk taking our intellectual properties in the X and Donald Duck Trump, or Donald with J. Trump, the Joker Trump, and the Riddler Elon Musk, and Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., the Penguin, and we've got yet another one here. I think when Bill Gates surfaces, we just call him the Avengers, all in one. But nevertheless, he's #1 scholar. How does a man from America with balanced education be on record as #1 scholar and #1 debater in or at Oxford University? In your opinion, please, what do you think of that?
Is that to everyone, or was that to myself, brother?
It is
That's
to
to
our guests.
yourself, sister. My comrade sister. What do you think of Malcolm as #1 debater
Okay,
scholar at
Malcolm X,
Oxford?
Minister Malcolm X is a very interesting figure. And in fact, here in the Black liberation community in London, we're celebrating the centenary of his birth together with Frantz Fanon and Patrice Lumumba, because as you know, all three of those important leaders were born in 1925. So Minister Malcolm X is interesting because he showed the power of being determined enough to take responsibility, to be your own liberator. Of course, we know that the Nation of Islam had a profound effect on his life. Again, if we look though at the Nation of Islam, we know that Minister Malcolm X's father was actually a Garveyite. So again, we see the power and the spirit of the teachings of African fundamentalism and race first through the enduring spirit of Marcus Garvey reaching Malcolm X, in as much as his father, prior to his murder, was a Garveyite. So Malcolm is important because yes, he's a Muslim. However, he's a very progressive Muslim because as a reparations activist, I don't only just accept that the Europeans are responsible for the genocide of our people, but prior to the Europeans, the Arabs and what they did in Africa means that they are also due to give Africans reparations. And we've only got to think about what's going on in Libya to know that there's an ongoing crisis in how certain so-called Muslims regard African life. However, if we look at Gaddafi, we know that Gaddafi was a very progressive Muslim. So it's not necessarily that they're Muslims. There's clearly an issue around Afrophobia. So Malcolm X is important in terms of Black men who feel that their life has no meaning because of the way, as Malcolm said, they're scientifically engineered into poverty, into unemployment, into criminality. He's shown through his life example that with the right organization, with the right belief in self and the belief in a God that is culturally appropriate to self, then there's always hope for renewal and hope for a rebirth. And as I said, the influence of Marcus Garvey in his father's life, it's just interesting to know that eventually Malcolm X turned his life around and was able to become a very influential figure in terms of Black liberation.
Right on, right on. And a lot of people did not know the profound effect that Garvey had, where his father, Malik El Shabazz' father, was actually a Garveyite. And that shows you, yes, that we all are family, that the same concepts of Black liberation and self-determined, as we profoundly do in our 10-point platform, 9 general orders and 12 objectives for what we want to teach our youth, these basic principles of self-determination. So this is such an important topic. I mean, not only Rastafarians honor Marcus Messiah Garvey, but all of us as melanated Afro descendants should at one point in time have some sort of principle to not only be part of the current UNIA, there are several chapters throughout the world, but to also support what he stood for as having relations with motherland, with Africa, with our original state. So New World, you want to chime in with your thoughts on how Marcus Garvey affected your life, or Amy Jakes Garvey, from what you heard, the powerful woman behind that man?
Most definitely. As I would, I was tremendously affected, as many of us who are for real were. But relative to the conversation you all were having about the introduction of slavery to Europeans by Arabs, we have to be aware of the fact that divide and conquer is and probably always will be a battle strategy. And we must clearly understand that our greatest power lies in our unity. No matter how they strike at us with their divisional tactics, we must understand our unity is where our power lies. So we got to work very hard, because we may not get but one blow at this, and we must strike a blow for liberation from now on. Because once you start this, the devils don't go to sleep, bullies don't stop, they must be stopped. So we must be clear about the fact that we must unite. We've got to create bridges. We got to build bridges to get beyond this petty foolishness, to get down to the business of our, I think as Dr. Clark put it, the selfishness of our diasporic survival, because we need each other. We all we got. Ain't nobody coming unless y'all know something I don't know. So I'm saying this is what we have to get beyond. We can't let the opposition cause us to self-divide. We keep approaching these things from European perspectives, and you can't solve African problems with European anything. So let's just do what I heard Eric Adams, the present mayor here. He said he stopped listening to the news and turned off his TV for his campaign. So that way he don't hear nothing they have to say. He's focused on what he has to do. And I think that's a darn good suggestion for us. Let's not worry about what they have to say, because as we know, they've told so many lies. It got our people so confused. We don't even know who we're looking in our mirrors at. So let's focus on what we must do and get our people focused on nothing but us. And as I always say, global African liberation should be our full-time occupation. And let's declare 2025 and on into eternity a victory for our ancestors, because they paid a hell of a price and we're here. We don't have to be mad, just be focused. I've heard a saying, it said, don't get mad, get even. I don't get mad, I don't get even. I get wise. And that's what I would suggest for all of us. Get wise about what we must do. Think about who we are and why we are here from a divine perspective. That's where I'd like to approach this with our youth. When we deal with them, get them to understand who they really are and why they are here from a divine perspective. Because as you know, there's been a massive assault on our lives. So since we're here, let's put some divine purpose behind that, because we need that. Much love, family. Hotel.
That's right. Black power. All right, New World. Thank you for those
Is there any other
comments. Yes. And so we wanted to again thank our guest, Empress Judah, aka Alesia Greenidge, with this powerful book, Amy Jakes Garvey, Inspirational Queen Mother of Black Liberation, and where you had a book event at the Marcus Garvey Library. Tell us a little bit about what, before we take this musical break, we're going to finish our last closing comments and actually go into a beloved, as our ambassador, Shaky Mom mentioned, Sasha Johnson, who is a beloved member of family as well, very close to the work that she has done. And so we keep her in support. And actually the anniversary of the tragedy is next month, May 23rd, in which we'll have a special show honoring her as well, as we keep her spirit up and rising. So let's play that musical break and we'll be right back. You're listening to Black Power Radio.
Outside the hospital where Sasha Johnson is fighting.
No justice, no peace.
No peace! No justice! Police! No justice! No peace! No justice!
They say we all equal, but the cops killing my people. No justice, no peace, no. Saw my brother, now he gone. No reasons, police, no. That's just something we gotta speak on. No justice, no peace, no. No justice, no peace, no. Look, you can't walk outside the house with a snapback. Police would think you thugs, react, then they clap back. Look, Black Lives Matter, that's the hashtag. But this is real life, way more than a hashtag. R.I.P. Breonna Taylor, R.I.P. George Floyd. Kill him cause the color of his skin, why you do it to him? Completely unarmed, just racially profiled. Now there's a mother out here trying to fight life with no child. Let's fight for the justice, protest just don't slow down. I can't breathe. Screaming loud with the whole crowd. When they take off that mask, they gon' put on a badge now. Out here to kill us, stand up, never they back say we down. All equal, but the cops killing my people. No justice, no peace, no. Saw my brother, now he gone. No reasons, police, no. That's just something we gotta speak on. No justice, no peace, no. No justice, no peace, no.
People are gathering in prayer and hope.
Welcome. Oh no, you could roll the footage. We just ran it back to
others who admire her reputation as a dedicated black rights campaigner.
When I heard how young she was and with everything going on, I just felt like it'd be nice to show support.
In prayer and hope. Some who know her, others who admire her reputation as a dedicated black rights campaigner.
When I heard how young she was, and with everything going on, I just felt like it'd be nice to show support. You know, I've got a young sister myself, and it's just sad, you know, that these sort of violent things are happening in 2021.
And how have you felt seeing what you've seen here and all this support for her?
It was warming that people have come out in this weather and showed support. You know, I feel like the energy is really positive, even though it's a sad time.
We got to protect our children and stand up to what's happening.
This was Sasha last year during the Black Lives Matter protest she helped to organise. This is the South London street where she was shot in the head in the early hours of Sunday morning. The Taking the Initiative Party, who Sasha is a leader with, wrote on their Facebook page, Sasha has always been actively fighting for black people and the injustices that surround the black community, adding that the shooting followed numerous death threats related to her activism.
My car's been smashed up.
In March, Sasha posted this on social media. She believes the damage was linked to a newspaper article about her campaigning, but police said there was no evidence of credible threats against her. Adding in a statement, while the investigation is at an early stage, there is nothing to suggest that the woman who was shot was the subject of a targeted attack. Some of her friends agree with that.
I do believe that it was a party and there was some type of dispute between two individuals or two gangs, and it was wrong place, wrong time. I do not believe that she was the target, and the third party information that I've received also kind of alludes to the fact that she wasn't the target.
As police inquiries continue, Sasha remains in hospital, and the prayers go on for her recovery and her young family.
Tessa's at the scene in Peckham now. Tessa, just bring us up to date. What's the latest?
All right. We don't need Tessa to give any more updates. So, Queen Janae, who is a personal friend of the families, can you give us a little update or thoughts on who Sasha Johnson was to us, as similar to the fight as a Pan-Africanist, the dangers that we face, and this work that we do?
Yes, I know I'm looking crazy now, but definitely that struck a nerve because it brings me back to the time when that actually happened with Sasha. Sasha was a beautiful person. She was a part of the new Black Panther Party in the UK. She was the only one representing the new Black Panther Party in the UK by her, but she was not a lone panther. They tried to portray her as this lone panther, but she was not alone. She had plenty of supporters, as you can see. She was a strong Black woman. She is a strong Black woman. She's still alive. She's still alive, but her family is sheltering her from any interaction that could trigger her, or her trauma or anything like that. Brother Alpha will be able to tell you a lot more than I can, because I don't have contact with her sisters as we did in the past. But I just remembering the day I got the phone call that Sasha was shot in the head, and this was right before the Tulsa, Oklahoma, when we went to Tulsa and rallied in Tulsa. And at that point, I said, they're targeting us. They're targeting all of us as activists. And sure enough, everybody was targeted and infiltrated throughout the party. And the party really fell apart on a personal level and just a infrastructure. Everything fell apart during that time. We did make the announcement that Sasha had been injured, and Dr. Malik did make that announcement. He let everybody know what had happened to Sister Sasha, but he didn't have a personal relationship with her like I did, or like Shaky Ma'am Akbar did, because we had her on Black Power Radio several times speaking about what was going on, and we had made plans to unite and work together globally to bring unification for Black people all over the world. And it's so sad because she was such a beautiful person. I mean, she's just beautiful, period. She's beautiful inside and out. And to know that somebody would have done that to her, it was just heartbreaking. But they had been sending her warnings and threats and targeting her in the UK. So they had vandalized her car or something. My computer glitching too, y'all. So just FYI. But she is still alive. She still needs our support and our prayers.
Yeah.
You know, most definitely. Financially, she has those little boys to take care of. And I mean, I just don't know. My heart goes out to her every time I see her face. And just could not imagine someone doing that to her. Because she had such a strong heart. She had the heart of a lion.
Well, she sure did.
I didn't even get down like that, you know. And I've been on the revolutionary train for the past 6 years, real hard. But I can say
I do must say, there's
Mhm.
something about a revolutionary in the UK that has a little more galls, so to speak.
Yes, I was
Maybe
right. Okay.
Empress, you can expand a little bit about that, but tell
Mm,
us, because we have a few more minutes left on our segment. Love for you to
mhm,
close out. Just tell your thoughts on the future, on the work that you're doing, and what you have think so far concerning
mhm.
the activism of being a Pan Africanist in the UK.
Okay, well, before I do that, I just want to conclude, if you like, the introduction that I've had in the way of being able to share about the book and inform people.
Yes.
This is how I conclude chapter 7 in the book, and I say, with the Amy Jakes Garvey Community Centre and the work of other committed international Garveyites, Marcus Garvey's words written to the UNIA African Community League members over a century ago about his wife and blessed queen, Amy Jakes Garvey, can now be fully realized. I commend to you the care and attention of my wife, who has been my helpmate and inspiration for years. She has suffered with me in the cause of service to our race, and if I have any sorrow, it is on her account that I cannot be with her at all times to protect her from the evil designs of the enemy. Her tale of woe has not been told, but in my belief that truth will triumph over wrong, I feel sure that a day will come when the whole world will know the story of her noble sacrifice for the cause I love so much.
Ashe.
So I like to think that obviously this book is a contribution in that realization. And again, that is one of the major reasons, of course, why I wanted to write the book, so that I could make a contribution to elevating Amy Jakes, Garvey, and her work. And I will say one other thing, and I've mentioned, elaborated on why I've said this in the book. I believe, given the work that Amy Jakes did before, during, and after her marriage, and as I said, for over 3 decades as a widow and a single parent, still ensuring her sons became professional, race aware men. She, aside from being a great mother, was and continued to be a committed Garveyite, Pan Africanist, Black nationalist. And so I believe that Amy Jakes Garvey should be recognized as a national hero, Shiro, in Jamaica. At the moment, we only have 7. And of the 7, there's only one female, and that is Queen Nanny. So I've expressed in the book why I believe that the government should give now greater prestige and acknowledgement of Amy Jakes Garvey by proclaiming her a national hero alongside Queen Nanny and, of course, her husband being the first national hero. I've also explained why I think Amy Jakes Garvey, because to my knowledge, there isn't a single bronze or statue of Amy Jakes Garvey in Jamaica. And I believe that she is well overdue having that a public statement, cultural and political statement of her giving so much of herself, her entire life, to the cause of Black people, not just in Jamaica, throughout the world. And to that effect, I've now actually started a GoFund page for the Amy Jakes Garvey Bronze. So if any listeners want to make, however small, however large, a contribution to that, I would be most grateful, because, of course, the idea is that that will mean that there is finally a bronze of Amy Jakes Garvey in Kingston, Jamaica.
Right on. So if you
Thank
have
you
that
for allowing me
GoFundMe
to
to
say
post
that.
it up,
That's
absolutely.
absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. I wanted to interject a couple of things here. One on Malcolm X, and the man, he was the greatest mentor to. I don't know we've mentioned his name tonight because I'm on the road in between the city and the state of West Virginia, and but I landed on my feet, and I wanted to say something to you as a scholar to please put in and include our beloved brother of New York City. He's right there by Dr. Leonard Jeffries much of the time, and his wife, Rosalind. I don't know if you have Rosalind Jeffries on there, and Dr. James Small. Do you have those two? We certainly want to recognize them because they are so instrumental in this broadcast being here and in the work of the Honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who would include Dr. James Small, especially. If you say Dr. Leonard Jeffries and his wife, again, is a scholar. Now, she at 80 some odd years old, but she still teaches some courses, including some African students. Students in Africa are taking from Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, the wife of Dr. Leonard Jeffries. These renowned scholars, we should not take them lightly. Those names with Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and Dr. Chancellor Williams, and talks about the civilization, but how they did not include us and we were the fathers and mothers of civilization. So that's an important factor I wanted to leave there. And then on Sasha Johnson was our guest, and I think a lot of people missed those shows that we did with Sasha Johnson. But of course, our beloved Queen and Zinga, another a renowned figure. We want to look at them in the Winnie Mandela in all of these sisters. We want to see the Queen Nzinga, the Queen Nefertiti, and these sisters that are challenging the enemies of our progress, the enemies of our people at this hour. We must say that because it's so necessary. Sister Sasha Johnson was a revolutionary. She was not the Two Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter, any of that. She was a Black Panther. Let's be clear on this, that she is a Black Panther, and she lives in the divine power of all the worlds. But she is one of the most powerful revolutionaries in the world of Winnie Mandela at this hour. I'm just saying to you that even with her not being on the front line now, but her work has been so impactful to the world of Black revolution. She's a giant in there, like Queen Nefertiti, like the Queen Nzinga herself, and like Queen Janae Nzinga, and she dedicated herself to the works of the Honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad and to the leadership of the Ambassador Sheikh Imam Akbar, yours truly. That's not a bragging point, but that is a point that this leadership is world renowned, has been world renowned for a long time. We didn't stumble into this. This is a legacy passed through the generations and the fine timeline of divine. This is a legacy in the continuity of the legacy of the most honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, the Black Panther Party, and today the Black Panther Movement. And the Black Panther Movement is, again, influenced, just as the Book of Khalid is an influence of the Honorable Dr. and Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz. We should be very, very clear on that. And that is the Black Power Manual. That is the Black Panther Navigation Book That is the Bible for every black revolutionary. If black revolution is properly understood, that Fred Hampton said, I am. He said that you could kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution. And he said, I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. The Sheikh Imam Akbar teaches clearly that Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad says that revolution is the only solution. And the Sheikh Imam Akbar teaches you that black revolution is the only solution. And I am a black revolutionary. Look somewhere on my Facebook. You'll find that stick. Take that sticker and put it everywhere and tell them of our full and complete intent is to put a Black Panther in every household. And I tell you frequently on this channel that the Black Muslim and the Black Panther education is the greatest justice, the greatest favor that you could do for any human being on this earth is to give them that final printout of the Black Panther education. I'll land my plane on that. Thank you, beloved sister, for joining us. And I just wanted to know, did you have Professor James Smalls and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries in your bank of scholars?
Black Power. Well, on the screen, we want you guys before we close out to recognize the new.
Oh, the other scholars already gone?
Yes.
Okay.
No, everybody's here.
You see, I had the question. That was the question for the scholar. Did she have those two in her bank of scholars? Was Dr. Rosalind Jeffries the wife of Dr. Dr. Leonard Jeffries' wife, and Professor Small, James Smalls? Do you have those two? If you're still with us.
You talking about Sister Empress Judah?
Greetings. Was that question for myself?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. To a sister like yourself, yes. Do you have two scholars with you? I mean, it's just packed in your bank of scholars. Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, who's doing a phenomenal work in teaching home and abroad. She's teaching here in New York, some call it New York City, and she has African students, and she teaches, I believe, on a daily basis. Currently teaching just the world history, and especially on the African studies and the study of history of ourselves. And Dr. James Smalls, do you recognize him?
All right. Thank you, my brother, for asking the question. In fact, in my first book in 2013, and I have repeated the same way of doing things in respect of the introduction and prior to the introduction, Asante Sana. So I have a page where I give thanks. And just to give you an indicator of what I mean by that, in 2013, I wrote, embracing and returning to the best culture
You froze.
to treat you. That is with respect and kindness. I have to likewise give thanks to the spirit of my ancestors. There are so many righteous Jamaican and African ancestors, young and elderly, residing in the afterlife. And then I mention a number of key individuals who I've said that, in fact, I said, there's glowing examples of the service of the greater good of all African heritage people at home and abroad, and I'm thankful for them all. I shall give a Santa Sana especially to the following men and women that have in wonderful ways personally influenced my life the most spiritually, and in my independent human development they continue to inspire and motivate myself. And I've started with His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia, Empress Menin, wife of His Imperial Majesty, and I conclude, there's a number of others, I'm not going to say them all because I'm conscious of the time we have left, but I include Dr. Khalid Mohammed, African American chairman of the New Black Panther Party. Then over the page in the acknowledgements, I especially appreciate the educational literature, because these are they're not ancestors yet, they're with us, the master teachers. Educational Literature of the African American cultural scientist Professor Marimba Annie, incredibly important master teacher, and Dr. Leonard Jeffries for the empowering African wisdom and information they gave in their books, lectures, seminars, and community events. And then I go on to acknowledge what I mean by that in terms of them traveling to the UK, going to major cities, and so on. So whilst I haven't mentioned Dr. Jeffries in Amy Jakes Garvey, he is a master teacher who I do refer to master teachers in the book again, but he's not mentioned specifically in the Amy Jakes Garvey book. Professor Marimba Annie is, however, and there's also a photograph of Professor Marimba Annie, because again, I'm sure your listeners are aware of the tremendous work that she has done. I see myself as a student of the master teachers, because I am by no means as greatly educated as they are, but I'd like to think that Professor Tony Martin is extremely happy with the work that I produced in respect of Amy Jakes Garvey. And so, yes, I'm aware of, I think the other person you said was Professor Small, but I'm not that familiar with his work as I am with Professor Leonard Jeffries, Professor Marimba Annie, Professor or Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Reverend Ishaka Musa Barashango. So a number of other master teachers who I'm familiar with, they have been acknowledged in both my books. I hope that answers the question for you.
Yes, ma'am. That
sure does.
did give me the answer. And just wanted you to add Dr. Rosalind Jeffries is
I
the
cannot
wife.
add anyone else because the book is printed. It was
Oh, no,
launched.
I mean to your bank to your bank of scholars far
Oh,
beyond
most
your
certainly. Yes,
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 ma'am. I
of
want you to
course.
put a
Yeah,
and
yeah.
keep them in the
I mean, at the end of the
prayer
day,
circle.
I can't know everybody because I'm sure there's other African American scholars. Because one of the things that has been part of the conversation for us in here in Britain is that we also have to, if you like, establish ourselves. Because whilst we have similarities with the African American and the Black community here in Britain, we're family. Whether other Black British people regard that or not is their, if you like, growth and development. However, we also have an experience and a history here that we need to document, which is what the first book that I wrote was aiming to do, was to say, look, there's an experience that has been going on for people of African heritage, aka Black Britons, that people need to know about. And it isn't all, drinking cups of tea and Rosie in the garden. Far from it. And this
Absolutely.
is why Sasha Johnson, who I was in communication with before she was horrifically shot, was a blessing and is a blessing, but at the same time, what has happened since the attempt on Sasha's life is that it's caused fear, not just in the younger people, but in the older people as well. I know that from the fact that even when I was at a reparations conference on Wednesday, I mentioned her name, and I could tell by the response in the hall, in the auditorium, it was like, oh my God, what have you said that, it was like, you could tell that people are afraid. And that was why they did what they did to her, because she was impacting on young people, and she was giving young people a voice in a way that wasn't, subservient to institutionally racist policies. She was quite defiant, she was clear, she was articulate, very courageous, and was able to be a voice to the voiceless. That's why they wanted her silence.
Right.
Exactly
And we
right.
have to continue a
Yes,
legacy.
ma'am. And that was my attempt to lock us in step because we're deeply concerned of our African or Akivalanian brothers and sisters of the UK and the region our brothers and sisters in France, etc., throughout Belgium and those countries where they're many times isolated and taunted, etc. And we know of the European situation much. We keep very close to it, and we just want as much ammunition as we can give on this Black Power Radio to keep that that bond to let's say right now we're bonding. Is that right? Yeah, we're brothers and sisters bonding, and we hope to extend that bond and hope it goes to the broader community here and throughout the Africa continent is in desperate need of us taking a different approach to managing with Al-Qaeda land or with the motherland, the continent of Africa, and definitely with the way we interact with the UK. Thank you again for joining us tonight here on Black Power Radio. This is TV News, and we hope we'll get your views soon, and we'll visit the UK as well, and we hope everything is going well there for you. Thank you, and bless you and the family for coming tonight.
And thank you again for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege. And yes, I think it would be good for you to arrive in London and get to see for yourself exactly what the conditions are like here. So you'd be more than welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then your GoFundMe, did you share the link? If you can, if not, we'll share it for tomorrow, but we definitely do need to.
Okay, so the GoFundMe, it's very straightforward. If people would just like to go to GoFundMe, all the W's, and just type in Amy Jakes Garvey Bronze, and then you'll see a short article explaining why I've decided to start that. Very much as to what I've said here this evening, there is nothing for Amy Jakes Garvey in Kingston, Jamaica, and she deserves to be recognized with a fitting monument. And also,
so while we look for that,
for her to be the next Shiro, I've explained why in the book, but certainly for now, the GoFundMe is to ensure that there's a bronze statue. And can I just actually say what would be wonderful is if perhaps the Queen Victoria statue that's in St. Grant's Park could perhaps the Jamaican government, and appeal to the Jamaican government to kindly send that back to England, sell it back to England, whatever, and put Amy Jakes Garvey there in Kingston for the whole world to see.
I say, Black Power for sure.
Hey, send that bitch back. Absolutely. So
please support the bronze, everyone. Amy Jakes Garvey deserves that. Thank you.
Yeah, so when we get the link, we'll actually share it throughout the show tomorrow as well. But it was important for you to be here. We are eternally grateful. We know that it's wee hours in the morning over the pond.
It certainly is. It's after 3 o'clock in the morning. So at this point, I don't know if anyone can see, but I'm going to do it anyway. Can you see the glasses, people?
That's right.
I've got my RPG glasses on. I need them now. But thank you so much.
You got to get a copy of that.
Crackers, support the Africans. Deport the crackers, support the Africans.
Every time. Thank you.
So right here on Black Power Radio, we're so grateful for you to come. If you want to support this broadcast, then you donate to $77 Bakers. That's $77 Bakers to keep this revolutionary media on the listening ears of our Black families. Before we go, we always want to close out with our famous quote from Adam Clayton Powell to remind us how beautiful Black is.
I went to St. Louis, Missouri the other day. They had Black Panthers from all over the country. No one knew about it at all. They had machine guns, recoilless rifles, grease guns, Lugers, 25 of them, all armed. And the chief of police met me at the airport when I arrived, and they were there, right there at the steps. He said, "You were violating the law." "Yeah, we're violating the law." He said, "We're tired of our white and black leaders, Jackie and Martin and Bobby, being killed. We're going to protect this man while he's here." And they didn't arrest one of them. Because they said if you arrest one, then someone's going to die, because we are ready to kill. Black power means black dignity. Just as surely as you're proud to be white, we're proud to be black. Black is beautiful, baby. It's pretty. I always say to my brothers, I say, baby, don't worry about the white chicks. We got everything from chalk to charcoal in our own race. You see? Black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Black power means dignity. Means we're going to walk side by side with you, or through you.
Or through you.
We're going to be with dignity and integrity. We don't want any more than you have, and we're not going to accept any less than you have. That's black power.
That's black power. That's one of my favorite clips of black power. That was Adam Clayton Powell at a convention at UCLA in the 60s, and it's relevant for today. Black is beautiful, baby. All right, so also check out our website, theblackpanthermovement.net. The Black Panther Movement.net gives you all of the information of our ancestors and what they stood for today, yesterday, and the future. So we're so grateful again for you to join us here on Black Power Radio. Any closing comments, Empress Judah, for our listening audience?
Yep. I would just say to the younger listeners, I mean, the book is actually for 16 and above. So I would say to any woman, therefore, in fact, that Amy Jakes Garvey gives us so many life lessons about how we can be involved in our own liberation. And so I hope that Amy Jakes Garvey will be someone who they will think of in terms of the same way they think of all of our other sheroes, recognizing as well that were it not for Marcus Garvey, Amy Jakes Garvey also may never have been the kind of woman that we know that she became, i.e., a leader in her own right. So the lesson for us is commitment, devotion to the cause, no matter how hard it gets. If we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is what is the alternative? There is no alternative unless we want to be a slave to the game. Liberation is our responsibility. One God, one aim, one destiny.
One destiny.
Santa.
Ashe, ashe. So if you want more information on how to get the book, you could actually text at 323-884-8583, and we'll give you some updates how to get it once it is released. So be the first to order it, family. Again, the Amy Jakes Garvey, Inspirational Queen, Mother of Black Liberation, with our esteemed author, Judah, Empress Judah, aka Alesia Greenidge. So we thank you again for joining us on Black Power Radio. Join us tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. This is your co-host, your friendly neighborhood policy analyst, Dr. Truth Bay, with Queen Nzinga, my sister from another mister, and Ambassador Sheikh Imam Akbar, our chairman, our awesome guy. And we are so grateful again for you to be here with us, and join us tomorrow. Be great and be black and be beautiful. Black is beautiful, baby.
Black power.
Black
Black
power.
power.
Black power.